Mini chapter 94 is called Jaymi Creates Scorpio's Appearance. Next morning, Jaymi is seated in his bow window above the terrace of the house on Jupiter Drive, surrounded by the grand panorama of canyons and hills and the street grid beyond. He closes his eyes and thinks back to that unique half-minute when he let his gaze wander up and down the cozy score, normal comfy or strange scary newsfeed, where new posts were popping up every few seconds, every one of them receiving scores and comments from multiple sources. Then he reopens his eyes, consults his ever-growing design for the Platinum Raven, and checks his sketch for Scorpio's visuals. Its first description of Scorpio's physical appearance reads, quote, "A young Armenian man of maybe 21, of a dark and delicate beauty in keeping with the silver scorpion pendant hanging at his neck, ellipsis. The Armenian boy dressed in black, a Scorpio pendant at his neck. No smile there at all, too much tension and exquisiteness and fierce vulnerability. For him it wasn't easy, no 1, 2, 3, but here he is, just as if in some club deep in a city. A sudden smile leaks through, a flash of light across his face for an instant. Then, once again, no smile, femme in black, for this is realness. So waltz, darling, deep in vogue, ellipsis. He turns his dainty head to one side and slightly up." Unquote. Jaymi turns to his design for the game The Imagination Thief and checks his sketch for the visual artwork there. Its first description of Angel's physical appearance reads, quote, "A dark-eyed Armenian boy of maybe 21, whose spiteful, sleek, depraved face radiates decadence and damage from its sharp beauty, ellipsis. He is shadowy, effete, both unhealthy and luminous. I picture him a pirate queen scuttling up the masts of a slave ship to keep watch. Aside from a silver earring in his right ear, a shiny black vinyl brassiere is all that he wears above the waist, above black leggings and pointed black boots. Through his smooth brown skin, I can sense the charge of nerves around his ribs beneath the faint swell of his breasts. His smooth little torso is built like a whip, thin and supple. Beautifully tattooed down the length of his back is a stark and emblematic pair of angel's wings, cross-cut with faint lash marks. Half the time his mouth, with its lips painted cinnabar, is sulky, and half the time his teeth are bared, jaws tense and snapping like a starved baby she-wolf. His voice is intersexual, with a degenerate breathiness underlying a fluid steel edge and a slight lisp on every S. A clean but musky sexual scent coils about him, even through the smoke. When his eyes fix mine for the first time, I have to make an effort not to flick my gaze away, so potent is the damage, and so luscious is the blackness of fever within them. Hard excitement and the pulsing of attraction to the beauty of the dark spills out of him, as if his sweetest wish is for a violent revenge against life and all who live it, ellipsis. And he turns away and slinks to the corridor's mouth, like a little black dragon with a scorpion's sting. There is then one further little artwork-oriented description of Angel a bit later on in The Imagination Thief. Quote, "He seemed to you, Lucan, like a sexy little fly. You saw him as a creature whose natural habitat would be hovering above a steaming hot pool of blood and honey, sending his feelers down into it like the snouts of a voracious alien. And those killer eyes on him, so startling in close-up, those big, brown, vital eyes, so dark and alive and dangerous and watchful beneath long black eyelashes. The curve of the eyes echoed and magnified underneath by the fuller convexity of pale brown olive skin curving outward over his cheekbones, then quickly back in and down in slanting arcs to the reticent mouth and smooth, sharp chin, and the delicate jawline rising around behind, past small ears to the flame of black hair around a round, intelligent forehead. That animal immediacy, that play of flesh and electricity combined, that scything sharpness and tang within a wrapping of organic yield and warmth, which knew that it grabbed your own gaze and licked it back." Unquote. Well, all right then. That's the brief for this final Beasts visuals. Jaymi glances up for a moment, taking in the canyon ahead. Then he fires his attention back down into those lines of code, homing in on Scorpio, swooping in towards him like a bird of prey. This beast is camera ready for his very own manga, a cocktail of essences from many places and eras. Dark angel of all genders, Roman Pathic from the time of Nero, feral and consumed at the edges of the palace feast, the mystic priestess boy Heliogabalus, anointed as emperor, and an alien idol fallen to earth from the future with a tail like a snake's. Jaymi zooms in and fills up the screen with the full-length snapshot that's been circulated to the production crew's costume department to ensure continuity in Scorpio's manga-like styling. In his little black pixie boots, black leather miniskirt over black tights, slinky black polo neck, and silver crucifix pendant, hooped earring and silver rings, not to mention the sulky mouth and the luscious darkness of obsession that were both touched upon in Jaymi's initial sketches, this beast's femininity is of the dragon diva type, evenly fused with the rest of him. As also indicated in the sketches, those Scorpio eyes are horny, as always, hungry for power and revenge and to be fucked. Brown eyes, in simple fact, but in greater truth, when the sidelight hits, they are indigo eyes. And yet, when his darkness melts into sleekness, the simple allure of his slender body, with its smooth little breasts and gentle curves, is topped by the prettiest of androgyne faces, delicate and vulnerable, and even almost innocent. Thus it is that Scorpio inhabits his own slinky black melodrama, in his own manga bubble of neon red and silver, an electrified fusion of self-love and self-hate, flickering between hungry self-pollination and picturesque crucifixion. It's a living for a beast. Jaymi hits save, sinks back into his seat, and gazes out across the canyons at the haze above LA, a mythic city span like a grand dance floor, where the sweet, fierce beauty of his own little Scorpio will soon dance naked in the sight of the world. Thank you, that was 94. There are 120 of these, but you'll only be getting 2, you'll be pleased to know. So 111 happens to be the next one. 111, Scorpio as succubus in the house on Jupiter Drive. Scorpio is only one of 6 beasts, I hasten to add, but there's only time for one. Late at night, as soon as Amber is asleep on his bed upstairs in the house on Jupiter Drive, Jaymi lets himself and Scorpio quietly in through the front door into the grand hallway of the building. Careful to make no noise, he leads his new creation up the main staircase, along the landing, and on down the corridor, stopping outside Amber's bedroom door, which he proceeds to open as slowly as possible, so as not to make the smallest sound. With his finger to his lips, Jaymi turns to his beast, kisses him on the forehead, then points him into the bedroom, gesturing that Scorpio enter within on his knees in utter silence. Scorpio's eyes are electric with uncertainty, fear, and excitement. He does as Jaymi bids. He falls softly to his knees, then slides himself forward, through the door and into the shadows of the room, making not a shred of sound. Jaymi slips away down the corridor, along the landing, down the staircase, through the hallway, and out of the house to his car. As he drives down the slope of Hercules Drive back home, he can picture what is happening up behind him in the house on Jupiter Drive. For a long time, Scorpio lies prone on the polished wooden floorboards underneath the bottom end of Amber's bed. Then, by slow degrees, he crawls out from his hatching place like Sadako in Ring, his palms and nails pressing into the floor. His animal gaze darts about him through the strands of his black hair hanging down before his face. He freezes, hearing Amber's faint breathing above. He slinks across the floor, along the bottom of the bed, then stops at one corner of it, breathing hard himself. Once he's allowed his breathing to subside a little, he moves just his head, turning it very slowly to look out from between the strands of his own hair, up the length of the bed to Amber's head, which is an indistinct shape against the paler pillow. Remaining on his hands and knees, Scorpio listens again to the breathing from the other end of the bed. Is Amber asleep? Or is he lying there awake in rigid silence, planning what reaction he will give to the tiny shreds of sound he can hear from Scorpio's movements down at the end of his bed, planning what sudden violent movement he will make towards that unknown intruder down there? Scorpio waits immobile for another half-minute. Then he slinks onward, around the corner of the bed, and starts his crawling journey along the side of it, with the wall on his other side, towards the bedside table ahead, prowling ever closer alongside that blonde beast's powerful body, lying up there on its back, all uncovered in the hot, sticky night, whose electric charge of warmth Scorpio can even feel down here. In a single bound, he springs up like a cat, lands on top of Amber's chest, plants his claws around the wide muscular heat of it, and crouches there quivering. Amber jolts awake to see a naked feline succubus with haunches raised, legs splayed, bottom poised directly over Amber's crotch, and eyes bright and feral in the dark of the room, fixed hungry and murderous on Amber's eyes, inches from his face. But as Amber stares back into their depths in this first extraordinary meeting between the pair of them, those Scorpio eyes soften, for Amber alone forever, into the dark, submissive gazelle eyes of a houri.